It must be time to clock out soon. His hand couldn't stop cramping and pulsating. That was one of the most intense writing sessions he's ever had. Not physically intense, but mentally. He couldn't stop thinking about his future, wondering about the plans that were set in stone for him. He can never be in the moment. He's always thinking about what's next. He sees all of his friends from high school having children and succeeding in whatever dreams they have. Jungkook just wonders, what's going to happen to him? He thought Taehyung was all he could ever want, but it just doesn't feel the same anymore. He knocked on the door to his boss's office, Daniel, to let him know he was planning on clocking out. Silence. Sir? It's... He looked down at his watch. 6:30. Radio silence. He knocked again. This time, he answered. Come in, Jungkook. It was weird for him to invite Jungkook into his office, but he still went along with it. He fiddled with the knob until the door opened. The room was dark at first, but then, surprised, Jungkook put his arms over his face to protect himself from the scare, but alas, it was only a surprise. All of his lovely co-workers and friends were gathered for an early birthday celebration. They were all getting a few weeks off for a holiday, but since his birthday is Christmas Eve, it was hard to find a good time to celebrate. He was enveloped in a crowd of his friends to enjoy some booze and sweets. Where's Taehyung? Jungkook asked Jimin after he shotgunned a beer. Jungkook was able to notice the tall curly one in any crowd since he was his husband after all. Not sure. He said he'd be here. Jimin exchanged looks with Namjoon and Yoongi, which led Jungkook to suspicion, but he decided to enjoy his night anyway. He searched the crowd once more and didn't spot him. He's sure he'll be here. He won't miss his celebration. Jungkook, his boss, Daniel, approached him. What's up? He tried his best not to slur on his words. He was a little more than tipsy. I have a little gift for you, and I know it's not much, but I hope it'll make your holiday season just a little better. Jungkook didn't object when his boss led him to another room to talk in private. You've been working for us for so long, and I really think it's time that you got a promotion. Really, he gasped. So I won't be sitting at that ugly desk anymore. He let his wishy-washy brain do the talking. Daniel chuckled. Yup. Of course, your promotion includes a significant pay raise as well. Jungkook pressed his hands against the wall behind him to help keep himself up on his shaky knees. This was the first and only job he's had since living in New York City. He deserves this. Oh, I can't wait to tell Taehyung about this, Jungkook gushed. About that, wasn't he supposed to be here tonight? He knew Daniel was just trying to pick apart their relationship at any time he could. Jungkook sighed. I guess so, Daniel hummed. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoy the rest of your night. Jungkook couldn't contain his smile. Thanks. He ran off to go tell his friends, to which they were just as ecstatic as he was. Congrats, Jungkook. Jungkook could tolerate his friends' terrible nicknames while he wasn't sober. Jimin attacked him into a bear hug, but Jungkook couldn't help but look over his shoulder at the door, just waiting for it to open. Jungkook walked home alone that night, even in the December chill. It was a bit more of a stumble than a walk. I guess one plus of living in the heart of the city is that everything is within walking distance. When he got home, he was comforted by the warmth and silence. Taehyung, Jungkook called out. I'm home. Taehyung must be sleeping. To be fair, it was after midnight. He dumped his work bag on the counter and hung his coat on an island stool. He stalked the fridge in hopes of something that would suffice for his drunk munchies, but they only had a bunch of organic shit from Erhan. Why can't they just shop at Target like normal people? He shut the fridge door in defeat and made his way into their bedroom. Taehyung wasn't there. He ripped out his phone to try and call him, only to see a simple text message from Taehyung. On a work trip. "I'll be back soon," he called him anyway. He left a voicemail. "Taehyung, it's me. Just call me back when you can. Bye." They didn't even say "I love you" anymore. It's like they were distant roommates sometimes. They didn't cuddle anymore, or kiss, or go on dates. It's like they were strangers again. Jungkook tried to contain his emotions when Taehyung was home, but now, Taehyung was gone. So he cried and cried, and cried. He cried until the sun came up and his eyes couldn't stay open any longer. His dreams were his only safe haven. His dreams were always so vivid that he thought they were real. He dreamed of running away to the countryside, except this time, with another man. He scrolled mindlessly on his phone, staring at models with six-packs that he wished he could have. He had been ordering takeout for the past few weeks since Taehyung still hadn't come home. Jungkook can't cook for the life of him. He was practically glued to his couch and sleeping in their bed hurt too much. Kim Taehyung posted a new photo. Jungkook furrowed his brows when he received the notification. Taehyung has been completely M since he left. He had posted a set of photos of him partying with his work friends and work wife. Godified her. Her name was Bella, fits her personality. She was all fake tits and lips. All of the photos were blurry and were definitely taken when he was drunk. On the last slide was a video that sent him off the edge entirely. Taehyung and his aforementioned work wife were dancing together at a bar in God knows where. They were dancing rather sensually, Jungkook would say. He would grind his teeth at just the thought of her, but this was something completely different. He did Instagram stalking and found her handle in just a few minutes. Apparently, she was married with 2 kids, 1 boy, 1 girl, and lived in a modern mansion in the Upper East Side. Jungkook wasn't previously aware of any of these details, but her bio says all he needs to know. At any boring work function that he's invited to, she never wears her wedding ring or even talks about her husband or kids. In fact, he's never seen them until he stalked her Instagram. Called him crazy, but he devised a master plan. He curated a fake account, disguising himself as someone who worked for Taehyung's company. He followed a few random accounts, added a profile picture and a bio, and got to work. He went back to Taehyung's Instagram and commented, "Wow! You two make such a cute couple." In only a few minutes, his work wife replied, "I know, right? That," he muttered. He called Taehyung immediately after, but of course, he didn't answer. He let out short, half-breaths like a madman before he began to wail once more. He shrieked like a banshee with tears coating his raw cheeks. Jungkook never cried, but he knew this would happen eventually. He hides his feelings deep inside his heart until one day, he completely loses it. But his first thought wasn't to order food and watch reruns of Friends, it was to write. He bought a new journal recently since he used all the pages, front and back, of his last one. He foraged through their apartment, which also happened to look like a rat's nest. He found it shoved under their bed. He practically mewed once he had a precious book in his hand. The edges were clean and sharp, not tattered like his previous one. He bought a hardcover copy this time to make it sturdy. He held the book against his chest like it was his child who scraped their knee on the playground. Writing was his savior. He had become a slave to the words he vigorously scribbled onto each page. He had lost his sanity, but he still had this. He's going insane. The next day Jungkook flinched at the sound of tinkling keys. At first, he thought it was an intruder, but then he realized that he didn't live alone. He sunk further into the couch, not wanting to show his face. He must look terrible. He hasn't showered in weeks. He's been eating junk food every day, and the house was a mess. The door opened without the usual "I'm home" announcement. He tugged a blanket over his face and body. He knew exactly what shoes Taehyung was wearing based on the sound of his footsteps. He knew they were his shiny Steve Maddens. His footsteps stopped abruptly. Jungkook was too shaken up to reply. He just stayed under his blanket, trying to ignore how hot it was getting. He could feel Taehyung approach from the cold aura that he brought with him. "Jungkook," Taehyung repeated. He attempted to lift the blanket off, but Jungkook held it down with all his might. He heard him sigh. "Jungkook." This time, it was a command. Even though he despised him, Jungkook couldn't stand his ground in his vulnerable state. He hesitantly lifted the blanket off of his body, revealing himself to Taehyung. He could see Taehyung's jaw shift and his brows become stern. He wanted to hide again. "Jungkook." Taehyung's voice was filled with pity, something Jungkook didn't need or want. "What happened to you?" Jungkook ignored the question entirely. "Are you cheating on me?" He tried his best to control his nerves, but his quivering lip gave it away. "What are you cheating on me?" Hesitation. "No, Jungkook. I would never." "Then why did you spend your work trip with her? Why did you dance with her like that? Why?" Jungkook's palms rubbed at his eyes, desperate to tear them out of their sockets. "You know how much I don't like her." Jungkook settled to say that instead of going into a rage rant. "He's too emotionally drained for that." "I could say the same about you." Jungkook finally met Taehyung's eyes, gazing into the sorrowful void that once used to be full of life and love. "No, you can't." Jungkook shuffled away from Taehyung, but he only moved closer to make a point. "She's just like you, Jungkook." Jungkook swallowed down a cry as Taehyung whispered those words into his ear.